Hi, my name is Ituha, and this is my world. I grew up in Bronx, New York. My mother raised me after my father abandoned my family when I was 3 years old. I always seemed to be searching for that father figure. When I was 8 years old, a half-brother of mine moved in. Finally, an older male that I could look up to. Unfortunately, he broke that trust and took it upon himself to molest me. This just increased my anger, and my depression started to set in. But I held on to the hope that I would one day meet my real father. When I was 12 years old, my mother received a phone call that my father had passed away. He had contracted HIV and died. It was hard to grasp how he abandoned his family to pursue a gay lifestyle. This was a pivotal point in my life. My anger turned to rage, and I wanted to escape. I began to smoke marijuana and drink every day. Every day. By the age of 15, I was strung out on heroin. In order to support my addiction, I began doing robberies. Me and two other guys created this scheme in order to rob this store. When we entered the store, my friend Caesar reached for the shotgun, but it got stuck in his belt buckle. The store owner recognized what was going on, and he pulled out a pistol himself. I seen it and I ran. Caesar tried to run, but was shot in the back. I ran to the phone and I called the paramedics. They arrived on the scene, but it was too late. Caesar was dead. I was apprehended 2 days later. So here I am, 16 years old, and I'm heading to Rikers Island. I'm charged with armed robbery in the first degree. While in jail, I focused more on reading about other criminals and crimes because I wanted to become a better criminal. When I was released, it wasn't long before I got back into the same lifestyle, doing the same things, hanging with the same people. A year later, I found myself back in prison with another armed robbery charge. This time, I began to reflect on my life. I wanted something different. I didn't want to end up like my friends dead on the street. So I began to study different religions. And out of everything I read, the Bible seemed to ring true to me. Even though I understood that Jesus offered the better life, but I felt I was the worst of the worst and could not be forgiven. I was released from prison, and this time I felt I needed a geographical change. I had family out in Kalamazoo, Michigan, so that's where I moved. The first week there, I met my wife, Tiffany. Me and her partied for about 8 months, and then she informed me that she was pregnant. I didn't know how to process this. How could I be a father when I never had one? I feared in some way that I would poison this child. From the time my wife Tiffany was pregnant till my son was 2 years old, I attempted 2 times to take my life. The second time landed me a trip in the ER, and I was in a coma for 3 days. But no matter how hard I tried to end it, God did not think it was time. My drug addiction was full-blown. Tiffany had had enough, and she decided we needed to separate. This ended up leaving me homeless and on the streets. I didn't see my family for 8 months. I eventually got arrested for possession of crack cocaine. While in jail, I began to process my life, and I started to really see that the road I was heading down wasn't working. I needed to change. I hit my knees and decided to change my life when I got out of jail. I saw my wife Tiffany for the first time in months. We decided to work on our marriage again. I headed back into treatment, but this time around, I had a real hunger for God. And although I was on the right path, I was still struggling with bouts of depression and going through withdrawals from the drugs. I ended up in a crisis center where they started to monitor me really closely. My wife had called a youth pastor who came to visit me, and he laid hands on me. And I felt in that moment something leave my body. From that day on, I have had no desire to use drugs. My goal in life is to show people where God has brought me from. I'm hoping that everyone can see that they are worth His gift. Looking back on my life, God has saved me from many things. I've lived in a gang lifestyle in New York, and I haven't had any gunshot wounds, stab wounds, or even a broken bone. I survived some of the worst prisons and jails in the country. He did not allow my life to stop. God has transformed me. He is the only reason why I'm alive today, and He has taken all the bad in my life and is making it for good. He is my Father, which now allows me to be a daddy to my son.